Hi, my name is Elena Turner, and I'm going to talk to you today about why you should give to charities. So the majority of the world does not have the same privileges that Americans have every day. In order to try to find a solution to this problem, I will use the Kantian theory to explain why people should be guaranteed their basic needs. One of the biggest tragedies globally of the least advantaged today is probably one of the most overlooked. This calamity is starvation because food is wasted, illnesses because clean water is not available, diseases because health care cannot be attained. These problems can be fixed if basic needs of people at poverty level were offered just their basic needs of food, water, and health care, instead of purchasing the newest item. Before getting into the argument on whether or not one should donate $10 to charity to save a life or eat one needed meal at Olive Garden, some terms need to be further identified. One of these terms is basic needs. The opinion of basic needs changes from person to person and place to place, so that one person's basic needs may be another's luxury item. Basic needs are the items one truly needs to survive. Some of these are clean water, food that is needed to survive, and health care for those who need it at that time. So one cannot live much longer than 3 days without water, or they will die of dehydration. In some poverty-stricken nations where clean water is not available, the only way to get water is to drink the unclean water and risk infections, parasites, viruses, and diseases that may end in death, or they could just refuse to drink the water and just die of dehydration. This could be prevented at least with a filtered straw so that the maladies cannot enter their body. But according to the Kantian theory, all people are equal, so why couldn't they just get the same purified water that we drink every day? And also, people cannot live approximately 3 weeks, or people can live about approximately 3 weeks without eating, and there is no excuse for people to go without food, because just in Las Vegas alone, 8,000 pounds of food are wasted for every 60,000 made and is sent to a pig farm. Yet 30,000 children die every day, so that's one child every 3 seconds. So the time it took me to say this sentence, a child has died because of starvation. But there's enough food in the world for every person to have 4.3 pounds of food per day, even in the underprivileged nations. However, people cannot manage to pay for the food in the open markets, and so they starve. The resolution is not just to give them food, but to make it accessible and reasonably priced for every person, or just to teach them how to make it for themselves. So when clean water and readily food is not available, health crises begin to rise. Thus, health care should be promptly accessible and affordable when needed. So POGA says that millions of people would be safe from diseases and death if generic producers could freely manufacture and market life-saving drugs in the poor countries. This is the main problem with health care in needy countries. For example, the AIDS epidemic in Africa, millions of people have died from a disease when it could have been treated by a generic medication if the generic medication producers could have free access to produce the needed generic drugs. And according to Kantian theory, generic medicine companies should be able to produce these needed medications because it would be an advantage to the least advantaged. Instead of giving benefits to the fortunate, but allowing a patent on a drug to stay there for an excessive amount of time, allowing them to make a lot of money, they should instead let the drugs that are really needed to be able to be sold at a generic price, or be able to be made at a generic, instead of and just leave drugs that are less needed to keep the patent on it. But all these ideas are great, but there are not a lot of people in the world to supply all these basic needs to, or to have to supply all these basic needs to. The population is always increasing, meaning the birth rate is much higher than the death rate. This is especially true in poverty-stricken nations. Hardin uses this example with the U.S., a more privileged nation, and an underprivileged nation that both started out at a population of 210 million. The population increases by 0.8% in the U.S. and 3.3% in the underprivileged nation. In 87 years, the U.S. population doubles, and in 21 years, the underprivileged nation population doubles. So in 87 years, the U.S. population will be 420 million, while the underprivileged nation's population would have massively grown to a 3.54 billion people. As seen in this example, even though the impoverished people do not have much, they still reproduce at a faster rate compared to the more fortunate people. Therefore, more advantaged people will be forced to take care of even more people. Kantian theory does not see it as being forced to take care of other people, rather than that they are their equal and to support and they deserve the same freedoms as the more advantaged. Another concern that comes to surface is how much is enough when supporting charities and underprivileged people. Singer says, referring to children overseas, that $200 in donations would help a sickly 2-year-old transform into a healthy 6-year-old, offering safe passage through childhood's most dangerous years. Singer proclaims that an average American family lives on $30,000, so anything made beyond that should be given to charity. However, to give an excessive amount of money to someone thousands of miles away and to not see the result of the donation is a great deal to ask of someone. One of the biggest problems with donating is that it can actually harm the economy. One of the major ways is when a nation buys resources from a poor nation with crooked leaders, the money does not disperse to the workers equally, and most of the time the rulers buy more guns and ammunition to control the workers, to force them to work on little pay. The economy in a destitute nation is also harmed by other nations invading and selling or giving away items that are produced in that nation. When another country comes in and gives away bread to everyone, the farmers that sell the bread, the people that make the bread, and the people that deliver the bread are without a job and income. Also, if charitable people come in and do everything for the needy without teaching them how to do whatever they need to do, the donors are not helping the needy learn to provide for themselves in the future. So in conclusion, looking at both sides of the argument, according to the Kantian theory, more prosperous people should donate to charities to provide for the basic needs of the less fortunate until the less fortunate can provide for themselves instead of purchasing the newest item.